Hey y'all, how you doing today? All right, I'm going to be working on the 360 again today. This time I'm going to be putting in the other four piston and rod assemblies into the engine. Um, but I want to show you a few things about doing that, some tips and tricks about doing that, some peculiarities, and just some overall stuff you can do to help yourself out when you're doing this, okay? So that you're not getting lost, and also too, so you're putting everything in the correct place, okay? But I also want to state that this engine will be going in my truck, okay, my 92 D150. Now, while this engine is low compression, it is an engine that is makes, even in that form, it's going to make considerably more power than the V6 that's already in there. It will bolt up to the current transmission that's in there. I've got a flywheel for this engine, manual transmission flywheel. I need to get a clutch assembly. I've still got to get a few other little items. I've got to get valve springs. I have a camshaft. I'm probably going to go with something a little more aggressive, because what I've got is like just one step up from a factory cam. The factory cam on the 360 was like a 410 lift. What I've got is a 432. So, but anyway, let me flip this around here long enough. Now, when you are building an engine, make sure you cover your engine up very thoroughly. Okay? Now, I know I've said this before, but it's information that's worth repeating. Be sure to cover your engine up. And dirt, when you're rebuilding the engine, dirt is, well, really, when you're rebuilding anything, dirt is pretty much going to be an enemy. You want to keep the dirt out. That is crucial. It's important. You notice some of these towels, while they are covered with oil, and they're oily, and they got a little bit of dirt on them, the closer we're getting to the engine, the cleaner the towels are getting. So you see, now, you also notice that these are old beach towels or old bathing towels. This is another way to save money. Okay? You don't have to buy the high dollar expensive stuff. You can do a lot of this stuff yourself at home. Okay? So, alright, as you can see on the camera there, we've got these two in. I've got these two in. I'm going to get started and get these four in here as well. So, now, I'm going to get this engine flipped over, and I'm going to do a final wipe down of these cylinders and make sure that there is no contaminants, there's no dust or dirt or debris or anything else, even lint. I want to try to get as much lint out as possible. If you notice, I said this before, but if you look at my coveralls, I've even washed my coveralls so that I'm, possibly eliminating as much dirt as possible. Okay, let me pause this, and I'm going to turn the engine over, wipe these cylinders down, and get started. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, y'all, I'm back. I done a final wipe down of the cylinders, turned the engine over, done a final wipe down of these crank journals here, these rod journals. So next, I'm going to get my pistons ready. I even went so far as to this particular area, I wanted to keep as much dirt out as possible, as humanly possible. So I went and I got my lid for this thing. Got a hair in there though. I've left that hair. Okay, but I got a towel laying across that. That's my oil I was dunking my connecting my piston down into. Okay, and then I've got that laying there. So this is where I put my, this little tray here is where I put my, just an old baking tray, but I took this and this is where I'm putting my piston ring, my piston assembly into the piston ring squeezer, run it down, clamp it down, and get it ready to load into the engine cylinder block. Okay, yeah, sun visor for the wife's Durango. My latest video, I replaced that. So, not a huge technical job, but still, could be a bit of a problem if you're not careful. Alright, so I'm going to get the other piston and rod assemblies. Now, like I've said before, I cleaned these guys up months and months and months ago. So I had these piston and rod assemblies sitting here waiting to be put in. So while you do that, when you do that, you may encounter rust. Number one thing, keep everything well coated with some sort of penetrating oil, some sort of oil. Okay. You want to use something like maybe, Deep Creep, PB Blaster, something like that. You don't want to use WD-40. WD-40 tends to evaporate away. I'm not a huge fan of WD-40 except for things that are like bushings and things like that are making a lot of noise. That WD-40 can come in handy for that. So we'll just put this down in here. As you can see the oil running into the piston from the slots in the piston where the oil control ring assembly is. So, while that's sitting there and getting all of that, I'm going to pop this cap off and double check these bearings in here and make sure that they are, there is nothing in between the bearing surface and the connecting rod surface. Okay, so here we go. There's a couple of things here. Reason why I want to be very persistent about cleanliness in the side here is because if I'm not, what will happen is if there's anything between the bearing surface and the connecting rod, the big end of the connecting rod, what can happen is that it can actually push part of the bearing into the and make it tighter on the crankshaft journal. So let's give this a little tap here. This one's being a little stubborn today, isn't it? So I'll get some small screwdrivers here and I will just gladly pry it apart here. There's already, I got a little crack going right here, so just a little bit, all we want to do. Okay. There we go. Alrighty. Okay. Let's see. Here's another little trick here. You can use a small tip screwdriver to get in behind the bearing on this. I'll show you right here on the rod cap. See how that tang fits into the notch on the rod cap? You can use a small screwdriver to help you get behind it and just slightly pry up on it and work it up and get the bearing off. Okay, That's all you got to do right there. And then just clean it, wipe it down, make sure there is nothing on there. You don't want any lubricant back here on this back side of the bearing either, okay? So, then we put the bearing back just like it's supposed to be. Okay, all right. Do the same thing up here on the connecting rod. I know this seems somewhat tedious, but these tedious little steps in making sure that everything is just almost microscopically clean, that is what will separate, you know, I guess you could say these sort of steps is what separates maybe an assembler from an engine builder. Not that I'm like an engine builder of some great rapport or something, okay? Now, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, though, is now the other day when I was measuring these bearings, or I was measuring the rod clearance in here with my micrometer, my caliper, I made some little marks right there. I can feel them just barely, but I can't hang my nail on them. So I'm not going to worry about them too much, but I am going to just polish them just a little bit with this Scotch-Brite. Not a fantastic amount, just a little bit. Okay, there we go. That's that. Alright, so final little wipe down. And another final little wipe down right here. And then we're going to go for the lubricant now. I use the Lubricant number 105 engine assembly grease. This stuff works really well for me. However, you may want to use something different. That's completely okay. Whatever works for you. Some folks will use STP engine treatment. Some folks will use something else altogether. I like this stuff. It seems to work really well for me. I've used it on I've used it on a lot of engines, and it works well enough for me. Okay. So, all right. All right, now we got those done. I'm going to get my piston rod assembly out here and empty the oil out of it. Now, I know some folks will go and they will do this bit where they'll do something different with the oil. They'll use maybe some sort of spray oil out of a can, or they use the oil squirt can and squirt the oil down into the piston and stuff like that. Hey, if that's what they want to do, or if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Okay. Going to check my gap ring alignment here, stagger. Okay, now you'll notice I've got a gap here and a gap here. That's both my compression rings. So of course I don't want them to line up because I'll just have no compression on that cylinder. So I want to turn them. Okay, so now when this thing is running, these will turn on their own. They will do that. Okay, basically you want to set them up, stagger them like this so that they will not be lined up when they go into the engine. Okay, now piston ring squeezer, it's entirely up to you what you like to use. Okay, some like that low tension ring squeezer. You know, that has the little plastic flip handle, and you know, kind of looks like an oil filter wrench almost. Some like that. I like this style. I've seen plenty of people using these. They work really well for me. Works really well for them. Okay, what's going on here? There we go. And besides, this one works really well for me because of two things, and I'll show you. Made in USA and Craftsman. So, okay. I just thought I'd show that. I bought this thing probably over 20 years ago, and I've used it a few times. Always works wonderfully. Okay. Put a little booties on the rod bolts. We want to keep the rod bolts from nicking the crankshaft surface. Again, that's another point of preference, personal preference for that. Whomever wants to do that, they can use, on here you can use pieces of rubber hose, you can use something like this. There's even, I think Summit even Racing sells specialized tools for these. Specialized little plastic pieces that goes on here and extends down pretty far down into the cylinder. Whatever your choice, your pick there, okay? Okay, next, need to load it into the cylinder, so I need to turn this engine over. You may be thinking that there is a lot of details when it comes to building an engine. You're absolutely correct. There is. There's a lot of detail when it comes to building an engine. It is not something for the faint of heart. It is not a 15-minute operation. This is something that's going to take you a considerable amount of time, which is something else I want to speak to you about. Be ready to invest a considerable amount of time building an engine. Okay? Now for me, this is a highly rewarding process. I love doing this every single time. However, one thing you do need to be aware of, you want, like right now, I'm alone. I don't have a radio going, I don't have a TV going, I don't have nothing going on in the background. Nobody's calling me. There's no interruptions. There's nobody home except me. So, that's what you want to do. Eliminate the interruptions. Lots of times, I'm out here really late at night doing this, and that's why. So, I won't be interrupted. People won't interrupt me, and then I'm like, oh my God, where did I leave off at? Did I tighten those bolts? Did I torque that? Did I move this? Did I do that? Did I clean this? Did I clean that? Those are questions that you'll be asking yourself, and you'll be like running yourself to death to make sure you got everything squared away. So, that's why I do what I do on this, okay? All right, let's get back to it. So, okay. I'm going to get my piston rod assembly and bring it over, and let's see. I think you had a little bit better, you all had a little bit better vantage point yesterday, so let's see. Can I replicate that today? I think so. All right. Okay, I think that will work for us. All right. Hold on. forgot about one little detail thing. I almost forgot. I'm doing cylinder number 8, so that's this one over here. So I need to lubricate, put some lubricant on the crankshaft. So let's see here. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and I've got the crankshaft lubricated there. And I did move the cylinder block a little bit. Now, putting the pistons into the oil like I do, you will make a mess. But you're going to be making a mess anyway. So, it's important to make sure the stuff is lined up and not to worry about the mess. Now I'm going to start tapping. You'll notice a little difference in tone there when it gets to the bottom of the ring squeezer. You want a seamless, easy transition from the squeezer into the cylinder wall. I've got my other hand down here guiding the rod assembly onto the crank. Now, one word about putting the lubricant on the crankshaft surface. Again, that may be, for some of y'all, that may be a point of preference. Okay? I like to put it down there on the crank surface. Some people will not. If I just like a little extra precaution. I take a little extra precautions there. I like a little extra, you know, lubricant there, because I know that there is a possibility something could go wrong, and that is one area I want to eliminate that risk. Basically, everything you're doing, everything I'm doing here is eliminating risk. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. Seems my camera has failed just a little bit. I hope you got to see that. I'll tell you what, I will do another one and let you see everything. Okay? But I will take you over here. See, I guided my connecting rod down onto the crankshaft. Back up here a little bit so you can see. Okay? So, I'm sorry about that. Just adjusting the camera here just a little bit. Alright, so now I'm going to turn this over so it makes it easier for me to get to this. If you are doing this without an engine stand, my hats are off to you. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is not necessarily an easy job, but a good engine stand makes this just much nicer. Okay? So, now, you're going to notice the notch. I've already talked about this before, but it's worth repeating. The notch goes to the inside of the engine. It faces inside. So, we're going to turn this like so, because we want the tang to meet up with the tang on our rod, our connecting rod right there. Okay, so see, our connecting rod tang, the bearing tang. Now, oh, sorry about that. Had to catch the camera, it was trying to take off on me. But our cap, our rod cap, the tang, is going to be facing it. Now, talked about this before. The heavily machined side goes and faces the cheek of the crank right there, okay? And you notice I've got some lubricant on there as well. The first few seconds after startup is crucial. It's very, very crucial. So we want plenty of lubricant there to make sure everything is going to go well. There's going to be no surprises. No problems, no hiccups. Okay. Get my nuts for the rod bolts. Okay. When I am putting the lubricant on the crank surface, I don't jam a bunch into the holes where the oil is going to come through. I'm going to move you all over here. Now, I've already marked this connecting rod, but they are also marked from the factory. Okay, this is a factory Mopar connecting rod, so it's not some aftermarket, you know, kind of connecting rod. Okay, so all right, I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to load another piston up. I'm going to get it ready, and I'm going to load it here in front of you so you can see maybe in a little bit better detail everything that's going on. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, y'all, I wanted to show you that I'm torquing the rod caps down. So here we go. I'm going to bring them down both evenly. I don't want to, like I said before, I don't want to do any kind of jerking motions with a torque wrench. Nice, even pull down. Watch the needle, goes to 0. That's got me done. So set it on 45, watch the needle go down to 0. There we go, that's done. Check it again. We're good. Whoop. Check it again. We're good. Okay. Alright. So, I'm going to get another rod cap assembly ready. Load it in. Did you see that? I'll be right back. Okay, y'all. I'm back. I'm going to load cylinder number 6 here. And get that done. Now, one thing I want to point out is you're going to notice right here there is like little notches in the front, in this part of the piston, in the top of the piston. They're there to help me line this rod, connecting rod, up with the crank, which is really important. So that's what I do. That helps me to align the crank up with the connecting rod, and then that way when I start pecking on this and pushing it down in the cylinder, I get it all the way down to where I can guide it with my other hand, just like now, just like before. Okay, there's my piston ring squeezer. Has done its job. There we go. Now another thing is, if you encounter any kind of interference with getting the piston to go down into the cylinder, what can happen is maybe like when I was pressing the piston assembly out of the squeezer, if the rings get caught on the edge right here, they will, of course, they will stop. And you will have to back up, loosen this back up, push the piston back out, and get it all squeezed again, and then push it on down through there. That can happen. Also, the connecting rod can encounter interference with the crank. That is another problem that can happen. If that happens to you, my advice is to, of course, guide the connecting rod, just like I showed you, onto the crank. Make sure your crank is at the bottom of its stroke for that cylinder. Okay, so I'm doing number 6. I made sure that my crank was at the bottom of the stroke, bottom of the cylinder. It can't go any further. So, when I do that, I'm ensuring, the best possible alignment possible that I can. Okay, let me get you a close-up. Here's those notches I was talking about. Now you notice all of them have those notches. Those are factory, so they put those in their factory. Aftermarket pistons will have something similar lots of times. So that just helps you to guide that and line it up. So basically you want this at the, if you're thinking of this like a clock face, you want these at basically the 3 o'clock position. Okay, so 12 o'clock, 6, 9, 3. Okay, no big deal. So there you go. All right, let's see. Let me get this flipped over, and we'll start putting the rod cap on, start torquing stuff down. Now, one other thing I want to share with you. Make sure and go over all the rod caps that you torqued. All right, so, earlier I was talking about eliminating the possibility of interruptions. That is a very real thing. You may have to take a break from something because, I don't know, variety of different possibilities. There's like, I dropped one of my little boots there off the, so there's a variety of different things you may have to take a break from this anyway. But when you do, give yourself the added benefit of stopping at a good place. Okay, you want to stop somewhere when you're doing this to where you can pick back up and you know where you stopped, you know where you left off. Now, as you just saw, that cap just went right on. If you're doing it wrong, you're going to know because it won't go right on, okay? Now, another thing is, I was talking about aligning the rod with the crank and everything. One thing you want to be aware of also is make sure that when I put the other rod and piston assembly number 5 in here, I want to make sure that it's lined up with this. So I'm going to turn my crank just a little bit, and when it's lined up with this, I want to make sure that the rod doesn't come in contact with this connecting rod or the crank. That's why I guide all of that down in through there. I know I'm repeating a lot of stuff here, but the thing of it is, this is really important stuff, and if I don't repeat it, you won't learn it. Okay? So, run those down there with my speed handle, torque them down to 45. Okay, so here we go. You notice I go over them twice. And there we go, down to 45. 45 is what the manual calls for. And there we go, down to 45. Now, some of y'all might be like, oh my God, all that oil everywhere, all over the engine and everything. Well, you know what? That can be cleaned up. That's not that big a deal. Okay? All right. This video has went plenty long enough. But I will share some other little tidbits. Now, I showed you this stuff here. I'm not going to lie. Building an engine is expensive. Assembling an engine, getting the machine work done, getting all of that stuff done, buying the parts, all of that stuff, it's expensive. However, you can do to help yourself out. One, of course, like this, do the assembly yourself. Two, do the cleaning yourself. Okay? Do as much cleaning as you possibly can. You know, I already showed that in previous videos. Cleaning out the coolant passages, cleaning out all the oil journals and the rod and main journal, cleaning the crank, the rods, the mains, pistons, everything, block, cylinder heads, you name it. Clean all of that stuff yourself as much as you possibly can. You may not have a parts washer at home, but hey, you know what? I've gotten better results with like an old plastic tub and some cleaner. Okay, like, let me show you. See that stuff there on my top shelf there, that mean green? And there's also some LA's Totally Awesome. Yeah, I've also got some stuff here called, all of those things you can do at home. And man, it works fantastic. Works really, really well. So it saves you a lot of money right there. The cleaning alone will save you a lot of money. And, you know, this stuff here on my workbench, you know, this was an old flour container at somebody's home in their kitchen. Like I said, old baking pan, you know, this is my ring squeezer, not very expensive, works fantastic. I even used, you notice I had all of this covered up earlier. I used the lid to cover this up. Eliminate dirt, okay? I mean, all of this stuff, you know, doing all this stuff like this in a more frugal, you know, don't spend your money on the trick of the week to like assemble your engine. Spend your money on, you know, the good solid parts that you know is going to make power, like a really nice cam. You know, it's going to get you good lift, duration, you know, get you that lobe separation angle you want. All of those things, you know. So, there you go. All right. I got to go. All right. So, thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. I really do appreciate that. If you've got any questions about this or any other video, I know this one's long, but got any questions about it, post them down below. I'll do my very best to get back to you and help you out as much as I possibly can. Okay? Thank you very much, and God bless.